Captain's Log, Stardate 2258.193. We believe we've identified a candidate world for Vulcan resettlement.
There's probably quite a hefty crossover in the Venn diagram between Star Trek fans and virtual reality early adopters. For one thing, VR is as close as we've got to creating the famous holodeck from The Next Generation and the other Trek shows of the 90s, and for another, Trekkies or Trekkers are nerds. And I say that with the love of someone who simply adores Deep Space Nine and will happily argue with you that Sisko is the best captain. Star Trek Bridge Crew, however, takes us back to the era of the original series, albeit in the alternative history that J.J. Abrams created. 4 players can take a seat on the bridge of the shiny new USS Aegis, taking control of a Starfleet ship and embarking on missions to explore, or study, or even fight to protect the Federation's corner of the galaxy. But first things first, you have to learn what you're doing, go through the Starfleet Academy, if you will. With 4 distinct roles, you can either be the captain, sit at the helm, tactical or engineering, having to deal with your own little crises in each position. They all have several layers to what you need to do, and that's what makes going through the tutorials for each rather important. Though, there must be said that once you've learned one role and just how you interact with the game, you can potentially wing it a little bit. But to get the best out of it, you definitely need to go through the whole training. Closest to the main viewing screen on the bridge are the helmsman and the tactical officer. The helm has to drive the ship, taking direct control over close flight or plotting and engaging the engines for impulse travel within a system or warping across larger distances. Those distances are basically level loading screens. Tactical, meanwhile, mans the scanners, weapons and shields, juggling different things within each of those, such as being able to scan and then target specific systems on another ship. Engineering is a little detached from those though, without the radar display of the other players. You have to shuffle power back and forth between systems, maybe boosting one at the expense of another, as well as then repairing systems that have taken damage, sending repair teams to patch things up. The problem, as I said, is that as the engineer you're a little detached feeling, and I was constantly searching for more things to do or more information about what was going on that the others had on tap. At the very least, all 3 of the frontline crew have the ability to manage the teleporter and remote hacking tools, meaning that while the tactical officer is busy with firing weapons and raising shields, the engineer can then be there to pick up the slack with dropping the shields of another ship. As the captain, you get to play as Kirk, or Picard, or Janeway, or whoever you prefer. Missions filter through from Starfleet, sending you off into the vastness of space to complete a variety of different objectives. It could be a simple seeming science vessel escort job that takes on a more serious tone as you are off scanning a shattered moon. Or it could be a search for a missing ship, a recreation of the Kobayashi Maru scenario even. Just in a relatively short 2-hour window of playing this game, I was very much impressed by the variety on offer, and there's often little side objectives that pop up within this, such as distress signals that you can go and investigate. The captain has got a few readouts from the ship under your command, but depending on how much you and your team roleplay, you can either be a mere conduit for information, or actually pull the strings and make decisions at every turn. The problem is that it's also incredibly easy for the tactical officer to just see a hostile ship, start scanning them, and raise the shields, for example. It all depends on who you're playing with, and I can see 2 ways that this game can excel, either with a group of players that are eager to play their part and roleplay, or as a group of friends who are just there for a bit of fun and want to mess around a little bit. Bridge Crew does do a fantastic job of recreating the bridge of a Federation starship in the style of the recent films, and there's a great sense of presence in how you interact with the world. With motion controllers in hand, the game is coming out on Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, and we were playing here on PlayStation VR with Move in hand. You're sat at these wide-screen desk interfaces. Look around you and you'll spot the other members of the team, or be able to peer out into space with the rather snazzy 3D screen at the front of the bridge. Once you're experienced enough, you've done the main campaign and are playing the procedurally generated ongoing voyages mode, you might fancy also doing so while checking out the classic bridge from the original series, something that is really quite special in this game. This is definitely one that's more for the role players, but the classic Enterprise has a wonderful sense of authenticity to it, with just this board full of blinking lights and switches in front of each player. They're practically impossible to interpret without turning on the game's built-in tooltips overlay, and it does mean that the ship's controls have been obscured to the point that this is purely one for the experienced players who know what they're doing. One thing is that the game can look a bit goofy at times. For example, a fire might be blazing in the corner once you've taken a lot of damage and nothing's really done about that, as well as the fact that your hands just look really very goofy. But just the way that the game gets you to reach out and interact with the controls in front and around you is fantastic. That goofiness does help with the messing around feeling when you're playing with friends, and I definitely enjoyed being able to kind of weirdly wave or shrug at other players. There's a lot of fun to be had in Bridge Crew, even with the few imbalances and concessions to trying to recreate the Star Trek feeling and the Star Trek setup. But I know that I'm eager to play more with a few friends, and this is Ubisoft again showing that they've really got and understood what VR is about, and with the Star Trek license in hand, they're exploring what it can do with an awful lot of panache. That's all for this preview, but if you've enjoyed it, then please do like and subscribe, and even share it with literally everyone you know. We've got a little bit more about this game over on thesixthaxis.com, alongside tons of other gaming news, reviews and previews and so on. So whether it's on YouTube or over on our website, I hope you'll join us again soon. And for now, goodbye.
Incoming message from Starfleet. Putting it on screen.
Captain, I understand you're about to get underway. Before you go, I wanted to remind you that you are representing the entire United Federation of Planets out there. I'm counting on each of you to demonstrate our ideals to the highest possible degree. But don't worry, you have Starfleet Command's every confidence. Good luck to you and your crew. Starfleet out.
We're being hailed.